All right, everybody, we're live. My name is Buddy Scalera, and I'm the founder of Comic Book School. And if you're here, it means it's Tuesday evening, the time when Comic Book School owns the airwaves. We'll be broadcasting live on our channels on YouTube and Facebook, and I think also Twitter. We can't get on TikTok for some reason. I don't understand it. But anyway, we are here, and tonight is going to be a very special episode. So, for those of you who enjoy manga and anime, for those of you who are indie comics enthusiasts, we have a very special event for you. I'm going to take you back some 20 plus years, actually 25 years, when I was working at Wizard Magazine. And I was breaking in as a new reporter for Wizard in the fan press. And one of my responsibilities for the magazine was to interview creators just to do those little capsules that you used to see in the front of Wizard. And we would do these little updates. And they would break up those updates so that each one of us would have somebody to interview and we would get those updates. Anyway, I would frequently get Antarctic Press, which meant that I got on the comp list, which was kind of cool. When you were in the journalism business, you'd get on the comp list. Free comics, you couldn't beat it. We didn't get paid much at Wizard. I think we mostly got paid in comic books. But anyway, I had the good fortune of being able to interview a creator who was the founder of Antarctic Comics. His name was Ben Dunn. He was such a nice guy, and he was just genuinely helpful. Anytime we needed something, he was always there, very, very professional. So it's no surprise that Ben has continued to publish comics and continued to make his mark on the industry. In looking him up in preparation for the show, I'll just give you a little spoiler. He's been at this since around 1984 when he co-founded Antarctic Press with his brother in the Antarctica, which I'm sure is not true. But no, he's actually in Texas, I think. But the reality is he's a highly talented creator, a very talented publisher, and an all-around nice guy. But here's the interesting part. I'm actually not going to be interviewing him tonight. One of the comic book school editors has raised his hand to volunteer so that you can see somebody different once in a while on the screen, but I'll be here in the back room, in the green room, eating all the cookies. So, Rob, would you mind joining us on screen real quick? Welcome aboard, Rob. Thank you so much for being our interviewer tonight. Are you looking forward to tonight's event?
Well, I always look forward to talk to people who have been in the industry so long. They have so much information to share with the comic book school audience, and we want to get to it. And we want to help him share what Antarctic Press is all about, and give a little bit of his journey, and how maybe someone in our alumni or the class students we have right now can actually reach out and be part of a bigger publisher.
Yeah, I understand that he might even be open to submissions. I see some regulars in the audience. I see D. Alley and Vince. Nice to see you guys there. Hey, Rob, before we get started, just as we allow people a few minutes to get into the room, to people of comic book school, they will know your voice as my announcer, and they'll know you from occasionally popping on. But you also have your own channel, just in case somebody's wondering why they're seeing Rob on the comic book school channel. What are your other channels, Rob?
Oh, I run Comic Book Advocates, which advocates for comic book creators and the comics they create in the comic book industry as a whole. I myself am a creator who creates books about fetish, monsters, and more. And once the pandemic's over, we'll get back to giving out free spanks and hugs. But for now, we're trying to, of course, I love Comic Book School. It's been inspiring me. So we're trying to use the Comic Book School platform to help many creators level up, all in the guidance of Buddy. So you guys have heard me. I've been in the background. I've been in the meetings. And tonight, I get the opportunity to talk to someone who's one of the pioneers of actually indie comics.
And Rob, real quick before we bring Ben on, I do know that you also have a channel specifically for people who are doing crowdfunding. You would just tell people about that real quick and where they can learn about that.
Backerpaws.com. It is literally a monthly, weekly, daily thread. We update it all the time, depending on the crowdfunding. We do a show where people get to watch it, and we have judges come on and judge it during the holidays. We're going to try a new format. That's the Backer Paws New York Minute. We're going to play 1 minute of every video. It's going to be a quicker thing. It's the holiday season, so we know we're all busy. So we're giving you 1 minute videos from everyone's thing, everyone's campaign. And if you like what you see, you can go back and just go to backerpaws.com for more information.
Thanks, Rob. So I am going to bring our guest on and then introduce myself. I'm going to bring Welcome to the stream, Ben Dunn. How are you tonight?
How are you? Thank you for inviting me. I'm doing great.
And I know that you are not calling in from the Antarctic. I think you are calling in from Texas, right?
Yes, I am.
That's fantastic. Thanks for joining us. And Ben, all those years ago, I mean it, you were the nicest guy. And this is literally the first time I've ever seen you in any form, right? We've never seen you. We spoke many times.
Oh, great.
So anyway, Ben, Rob is going to guide you through this. There are no short answers. Feel free to elaborate as much as you want because the people here are aspiring creators. Some of them might even already be fans of Ninja High School. So feel free to go on as long as you want. We'll keep the lights on, okay? I'll be
All
sitting
right,
in the
sounds
green room.
great.
If you need anything, Ben, you just give a shout. I'll be here waiting for you.
All right, thank you so much for inviting me.
All right, bye-bye. How do you get me off? And here I
It always helps when you're unmuted. Although one of the things we want to talk about is your origin story. Like any good comic book, you open up the page. How does Ben go from? I assume you start off as a comic book fan, like all the rest of us do. You go from comic book fan to suddenly publisher at Antarctic Press. Can you give us that kind of origin story in the beginning of the comic that tells us who you are as the hero of tonight's show?
Well, I appreciate it. Well, I actually started drawing comics about 1984, and then I decided that with the success of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the opening of the direct market, it allowed us to get small publishers to decide to get in on the market. So I created Antarctic Press with a business partner of mine in 1985. Our first book was Mangazine, and it did really well for us, and we've been publishing ever since.
Now, can you go over the beginnings? Like, how did you you just decided one day you were going to do this? How did you begin that process? Because I don't think people realize how much work it is to actually become a publisher.
Well, you have to go back to the 80s where Diamond and Capital City and small pub distributors started selling comics to the direct market, to comic book stores. Comic book stores were starting to pop up everywhere and decided to get into, and Marvel and DC decided that they would allow their books to be sold directly in exchange for non-returnability. And then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out, and that was a huge hit, and that started the whole black and white boom of the 80s. And I was attending college at the time, and I didn't really feel really up to the rigors of academic life, and I wanted to do comics. So I borrowed some money, partnered up with a friend of mine, and we decided to go and start our own comic book publishing company. And based in San Antonio, we looked for printers. We sent out our solicitation to all the distributors at the time. They all picked us up. They sent us the orders, and we printed the book, and we were on our way.
Now, in the early days, I'm sure, like a lot of creators don't, and we can't stress this enough, they don't understand the struggle it was just to even try to find a printer, let alone be taken seriously without a big corporate behemoth behind you. Can you just elaborate a little bit how you personally, back in the late 80s, early 90s, started to get the word out there? Because you didn't have the social media that we have today, if any social media. It was definitely more word of mouth, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was all word of mouth. We had to type up everything. We didn't have, the printers and computers. We had to do everything with typewriters and typeset. We had to do everything by hand. In San Antonio, there were no comic book printers. So our first book, we had to find anyone who could do it. And if you look at first issue of Mangazine, it was not a traditional comic book in the true sense. And I had to physically go to a one printer who could do the interiors, another printer who could do the covers, and then find a binder who could all staple it together, cut it, trim it, and say, well, and then I had to hand pack every single book and send them off to the distributors. So it was quite a struggle, and I was really happy to finally find a printer who could actually print comics all in one location. So things really got easier after that. But yeah, those were really heady times at the when comic book publishers were popping up all over the place during the 80s.
So you managed to put out something that I don't think if anyone was into comics in or especially early 90s didn't hear about. You put out the gigantic hit of the Ninja High School. Tell us a little bit about that project.
Well, I'm a big manga and anime fan. I was really exposed to manga when I was overseas. When I was visiting Taiwan, I was exposed to a ton of manga there. And it was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that before. Because, I grew up with American comics. They were on color. They were floppies, and I thought those were the only comic books that were legitimate. And then when I went to overseas and I discovered manga, I said, wow, this is really something different. It was all black and white. There were huge volumes. There were thick volumes. And they were just drawn in a style that was really interesting and different. It wasn't done in the traditional Western style. I mean, now manga is pretty ubiquitous, but back in the day, it was still a new thing. No one had ever discovered it. Or no one had really discovered it in the States, except for like a small group of people who were very much into anime and were exposed to Japanese culture. So I decided that this was the kind of art form I wanted to promote. And I was also a big anime fan. So I just took a lot of the influences from anime and the manga I read and just decided to create my own. And Ninja High School was the result.
And now you celebrated 35 years recently, and you're at issue 177. How do you keep a project going for that? Because I know a lot of indie creators don't, in their mind, 177 is like a magical number that they could never get to in their mind.
Well, it's just a lot. You just got to wake up in the morning and say to yourself, you got to do it. It's just something I want to do. The good thing about something like Ninja High School for me personally is I just like the story and the characters, and I just can, as long as I can keep coming up with stories and new characters and stuff, I'll just keep going. I mean, of course, I'm not anywhere near like Fred Perry's Gold Digger, who's approaching issue 300. So it's I've still got a lot of catching up to do.
Speaking of Gold Digger, that is definitely one of those titles under your umbrella that we hear a lot about. Do you want to give the watchers of this evening the lowdown on the Gold Digger?
Sure. Fred Perry, he was a Marine, and he just gone out and he loved comics, and he kept sending submissions, to Ninja High School. We were looking for new creators, and he kept sending submission after submission after submission, and we kept rejecting him, until finally he sent a submission that we really liked, and we accepted it. And we published his very first work in Ninja High School, yearbook number 1. He did a story in there, and we asked him, hey, are you willing to do some more stories? And he said, sure. And he kept sending us stories, and then finally we had an anthology book called Mangazine, which was it's an anthology to give creators a chance to get their work published, without committing to a whole series. And he sent us a short story called Gold Digger, which we really liked. And we asked him, hey, are you willing to expand this into doing into doing a miniseries? And he said he would. And we did a miniseries. Now, when it first came out, it didn't do very well. It sold terribly at first. But we remained committed to Fred as long as he was willing to keep doing stories. And he kept doing them, and we kept publishing them. And then finally he got to the point where he garnered a really good fan following. And the one thing about him I can say is he's been writing and drawing and coloring the book all by himself. He's never had anybody do any fill-in issues. He never had anybody write or draw any Gold Diggers. He's doing it all himself, which is something I really, really admire.
That is a fantastic story. And of course, we all like to kind of watch other creators and what inspires us. And Red's must be reading my mind right now because she's asking what was the manga that you read in Taiwan. Totally curious. And so am I. What inspired you? Because you kept talking about being inspired. Specific titles where there's certain creators or artists that you were like, wow, them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you. The manga I read in Taiwan were mostly bootlegs. They were taken from Japanese manga and translated into Chinese. I mean, I like the art. It wasn't, I didn't know who the creators were because I didn't read the language. I just liked the art. Just looked at the artwork. And I liked the way that the manga told the story, where even though I didn't understand the language, I could still pick up the story pretty readily. It was not too hard to figure out what the story was going on. It wasn't until years later I found out that I was reading, of course I was a boy at the time, so I was mostly gravitated toward the boys manga. Mostly I discovered I was really much into Go Nagai with his Mazinger Z and all his robot stuff. And Ishimori, who did the Kamen Rider. And I just picked up anything and everything. I was voracious, and it wasn't until years later I finally found out who the artists were and what the titles of those series were. I even picked up a Spectre-Man manga, Ultraman manga. I mean, anything I could get, I got, because manga in time was very cheap. And hey there, and so it was not expensive for me to get a ton of manga at the time. So, and I just I brought them all over with me. I just started copying the style, and I just decided, hey, this is something I really could get into. So I just started using it.
And that's amazing. We inspire each other. I mean, I've said it many times. A buddy inspired me in a lot of ways to become the comic book advocate I am today. And you never know whose life you've touched. And I'm sure that you realize that being able to do Antarctic Press has touched a lot of lives. I remember looking at you in Wizard, and I've owned copies of the Ninja High School. So I definitely appreciate all you've done. If no one's ever told you that, which I don't believe is a thing that could have happened, but if no one has, I want you to know I appreciate you. But one of the things,
thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome. There's a point in your life when you just read anything like a sponge. Did you go back to like the Marvel DC books at any point and start reading them like you were with the mangas?
Sure. I mean, I never stopped reading Marvel and DC. I collected Marvel and DC, as both a reader and a collector. And I was collecting comics when I was really young. I loved reading comic strips in the paper. Peanuts was a particular favorite of mine. And I just kept on reading comics. I just love the medium. I think the medium itself has limitless possibilities. And I just love the fact that you can, take a pencil and paper and just create, entire worlds and create new characters and just have a blast doing it. And it was just one of those things. And I loved all the, characters from Marvel and DC. I collected artists. I love Neil Adams, John Byrne, Jim Steranko, Jack Kirby, Kurt Swan, and all those other. And I just loved reading comics. I read any comics I can get my hands on, and that I could afford.
And then that leads you to having Antarctic Press, which allows other creators to submit. And you do have an open submission process that I do want to talk about a little bit. But before we get there, because that's rushing into it, you're someone who has to say yes or no. And you said it already in the program when you were talking about Gold Digger, and he kept coming back and he didn't take the rejections. What about him that he kept going? Did you see a progression in his work as he kept coming back to you? Was it the tenacity of not accepting that no and just being just constant? Like, what about him was that final point where you pivoted and said, no, let's give this guy a chance?
Well, I particularly admired his tenacity, not only of his talent, but also just the fact he just wouldn't give up. just kept at it and kept at it. And we admired that because it was something that we felt that he was serious about wanting to be a comic book creator. So we decided just let's give this guy a chance. And it was is that Fred, from the very get-go, he just kept at it. He just would not stop. And that's the thing that really really gravitated us toward his work. And he just, as long as he's willing to do something for us, we'll keep publishing it. Because we are gotten to the point now where we're pretty much family. So we take care of each other.
But there has to be a line, and because I know people are watching, and I don't want anyone considering, all I have to do is bother Ben. There's a magic behind being between tenacity and annoyance. What are the red flags you see when creators are approaching you? What are the things that you can give advice to all the people watching tonight? Hey, don't do this with publishers because it's going to make them feel weird about you. What would you say those things are?
Well, I mean, I can't speak for every publisher. I can only tell you what my experience has been. We have a standard disclaimer that I always send to anybody who wants to submit. I want to just tell them up front, how Antarctic Press operates, what expectations they can have, and how things will go as far as getting your work published and getting paid. That's really what it comes down to be honest. And if you are willing to go through the effort and after you've read the disclaimer and you're willing to go through the effort to continue to do so, my door is open to any creator to submit something. And the fact of the matter is that I have to build trust between the publisher and the creator, because I want them to know the upfront what the expectations are. Sometimes we get a lot of creators who feel like their creation should be the next big, huge thing, and it could very well possibly be. But the thing is they have to get it out there, and it has to get known. If you don't take the effort to bring your creation to life, no one's ever going to see it. No one's ever going to read it. And there's other venues. You don't have to go through Antarctic Press to get your work out there. We'd love to have you if it's something, that you'd like for us to do. But nowadays, it's not like in the back in the 80s and 90s when the direct market, you had to go through traditional publishers to get your work out there. Now anybody can do it. You can have crowdfunding, you have digital, and we're just another option for creators. And I always just look for creators who can do the work. I will tell you honestly, we don't have the resources to like if you're a writer, we don't have the resources to find you an artist to bring your work to life. That's on you to do. We only really take material that's print ready to go, and I mean that's the reality of a small publisher such as ours. But if your book is ready to go and it's halfway decent, you've got a really good chance of being published.
One of the things I love that you wrote on your actual site or in your submission area is that before you submit, take a look at the kind of books that our company publishes. As you'll notice, most independents don't publish superhero titles, so it's recommended that you submit concepts that are specific to that company. And I do want to touch on it. Why do you think superhero titles are so difficult in the independent market? And as a follow-up to the specific comics, just so our audience knows if they haven't figured it out, what would you call this specific model that Antarctic Press goes by?
Well, as far as superheroes are concerned, I mean, you have Marvel and DC. They've been doing superheroes for what, nearly 80 years, and so they know what they're doing. So if you're going to do a superhero book of any type, you've got to offer something different than what Marvel and DC are offering. Okay, your characters have to be so unique that they can look at it and say, wow, this is something I've never experienced before. I mean, it's not impossible. I mean, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you could call them superheroes. They're different. I mean, the Tick, this superhero, he's totally different. I mean, there are countless independent characters out there, superhero characters that have found success being superheroes. I mean, even in manga, My Hero Academia is a superhero book. Dragon Ball Z is a superhero book. I mean, if you really think about it, any adventure type character with powers is a superhero. It's just how you handle it. What makes you have to look at your own creation and say, well, what makes my creation different, unique, that I can attract readers to want to, follow the adventures of.
Now, I think one of the biggest mistakes a lot of creators make is when they meet publishers in actual person. What would you consider a professional way to approach someone like you if you were at a show, or even if they wanted to send you an email? What are the suggestions you can get for professional behavior that will instantly make you think that they're taking themselves serious and taking the opportunity serious?
Well, I can't speak for everyone, but for me personally, just come up, and just introduce yourself, ask if you'll be willing to look at a portfolio or a project that you have, and ask nicely. Just be a decent human being, and I'm not going to turn you away. I will always look at anything that someone tells you, and I'll be honest with you. I'll be upfront and say, yeah, I like this, or you may have some problems here, and this is where I think you can improve. But me personally, I am always looking for new creators. I'm always looking for new talent. I'm always trying to expand my my reach to find new and interesting folks to pal around with, and just to see what they come up with. Because I'm always looking for things that are interesting, and will captivate my attention.
Now, you mentioned something I think that's very important: feedback. And now, obviously, Ben, you're not trying to hurt anyone's feelings. You're not doing this anything outside of love for the medium. Can you explain how important it is because we have a lot of students here who are watching, how important it is to get rid of the ego and hear the feedback? So I'm sure you've dealt with the two type of creators: the creator that listened to your feedback, came back to you, and then impressed you, and you were able to sign them. And that second creator who told you they were going to be the biggest thing in comics, said something probably rude, ran off, and you never saw them again. Can you explain how important it is to take that feedback positively from people who see things they might not?
Well, I mean, that's a pretty difficult question to answer, actually. I expect, when you meet somebody, to treat each other with respect, of course. But as a creator, it's really up to you how you want to present yourself. If you feel like your work is, you know, uh, is really up there and will lead to huge success, then great. I applaud you for that, and I wish you much success. But if you're coming to me, and wanting me to publish it, then you're going to have to accept whatever praise or criticism that I have, because in the end, it's my money, which I'm putting at risk on a creation that may not pan out. And if you're a creator who feels like you can do it on your own, then that's fantastic. I wish you the best of luck. But if you're going to come to me, you're going to have to, pretty much abide by the rules set out by our company, and decide what and accept whatever we decide. You don't have to, come to us. You don't have to accept our decision. We do not hold any animosity or ill will to any creator who decides not to go with us. And in fact, we only wish nothing but success to any creator who decides to go on his own after being with us, or or if we reject them in some fashion, But I mean, the reality of it is that we're taking a chance on somebody that we may not know, and if we don't get a good vibe when we meet you, then chances are we're probably not a good fit.
Now, Red actually asked a good question. She says, are there genres or subjects that you're not in your wheelhouse, such as superheroes? And do you gravitate towards certain types of stories? When you're going through it, are you looking for possibly something that fits well? Or are you looking for something that maybe very original that might fit in? Like, how do you look at it? Or do you just go in with an open mind?
I go with an open mind. I believe me, in the last 35 years, I've seen a lot of stuff. But it never fails for me to see something that's new and interesting, because every creation is unique, and I look at it that every creation is unique. There may be some things that may not be as original, but it's still your own unique stamp on it, as long as you did it yourself. I don't really look. There are some things I do look for. I tend to gravitate things that are that grab my eye visually, because I'm more of a visual guy than But if I read a story and it's really captivating, then that's also a really good thing too. But no, I'm personally, for me, anything is open. The only thing I'm not really uh, knowledgeable on is like very avant-garde material, but well, we publish that stuff too, so it's not like we haven't done it.
And Red actually follows up with the perfect question phrased in a way that I was trying to figure out how to phrase it. So we're going to go with her adaptation of it. So if you do accept a new submission, so you've accepted it, what's the process from acceptance of having the book now in your wheelhouse, under your publisher, into the customer's hand, and how much of that process is the original creator part of?
Well, it's really easy. Once we accept a submission, it's things move pretty fast. What you do is, once we get everything, all the files and material that we have, and we have the complete book in our hands, then we schedule it. We find an opening in our calendar where we feel like it's a good fit, where we can maximize the potential sales and exposure. And then once we get the schedule to the creator, said, well, this is where we feel we want to schedule your debut. If that's acceptable, then we send it to the distributor, which is Diamond, and they put it in their catalog. And then we wait for a month and a half to 2 months for the orders to come in. Once the orders come in, then we set the print run. And then once it's printed, we ship it. And then it's up to Diamond to get into stores at the appointed time that's supposed to be out. And then we get paid, and then the creator gets paid.
Now, as a publisher, a lot's been changing. I mean, you've seen this industry go from not having a printer to there being plenty of printers, to Diamond not exist. I'm sure you remember when there wasn't really a Diamond. Diamond wasn't the king, and now all of a sudden the king is no more. How has that affected you and your business model? Has it changed, not having Diamond be what Diamond was just a year ago?
Well, we've been with Diamond a long time, and our hope is that Diamond will continue to be around for a long time. As long as there are comic book stores out there willing to order our books, we'll keep publishing until it's no longer sustainable. I mean, we know we are prepared in case the market were to collapse. We still think there's a demand for comic books. It will probably just take a different form. We may decide to go all digital. We may decide to only do print on demand. We may decide to do only crowdfunding. I mean, there's a lot of options out there. Whether or not we remain a traditional publisher, it's hard to say. I mean, it's too early in the game as far as I is concerned, but we are prepared. in case something were to happen or to change that would greatly change the dynamic of the whole industry.
Now, speaking of the dynamic of the industry, we know that 2020 changed everything. It made us relook at the models that we were using. And Red's actually asking the same question I had. She says, so during the time of waiting, do you push things on social media or market books inside or outside the standard distribution models, such as digital sales or on a demand system? Now, obviously, I see your store in front of us where people can do that. 2020 taught us that we couldn't just rely on comic book stores or comic cons. How has your business model changed, and how do you approach social media since this whole world-changing event has happened to us?
Well, yes, social media is vitally important, especially for small publishers. We can only do so much because we have limited resources. We don't have a large staff. It's really up to the creator to really promote his own material. Once we give the creator the information they need as far as the release dates and the order number, we highly encourage the creator to go ahead and do their own promotion whenever they can. And a lot of creators are really good at that. They really have done a stellar job in promoting their own work. We do what we can with our resources that we have available. Doesn't always guarantee success, but we do what we can. As far as the business model is concerned, yeah, things are changing. There's no question about that. And we are trying to slowly adapt. We're trying to see what our options are, as far as where things are going. I mean, like I said, there is the crowdfunding venue. There's the print on demand venue. We can go to digital. NFTs are a possibility as well. There is a brave new world, as they say, and it's changing. It's just that we don't know how things are going to go. Things are still in flux. Comic book stores are in flux. The direct market is in flux. It's hard to predict how things will go. So far, things are doing, for us, relatively well. It's stable. We haven't had any major things that have come up that have, wrecked our business model in so much. But we are taking steps to prepare in case things go south.
Now, you'd mentioned NFTs, and right away that just comes up to the huge debate that I've been hearing on social media and in different corners. And this has even come up with Marvel and DC. Do NFTs kind of worry you because as a publisher, there was never clear writing on NFTs? Or does it not really bother you? Have you had a conversation with creators about what NFTs look like, or are you just trying to figure it out like the rest of us?
The technology is there. I mean, the cat's out of the bag. Unless some government intervention comes in to change it, it's a resource that I think is available to creators, and I don't see any reason why creators can't take advantage of that resource. Nothing would please me more to just see creators, make a really decent living using things like NFTs or crowdfunding or whatever, because I want artists to succeed. I want creators to succeed. And if it's something of a resource that they can take advantage of, I would highly encourage people to use it. I think right now it's that we're still trying to chart uncharted waters. No one really knows how things will go with things like crowdfunding, NFTs, and things like that, because we're on the cusp of a very early age, but we just got to find somebody who's willing to figure out how to make it and apply it to comics and see how well it can be monetized and get it out to the people.
I just wonder how long until writers actually realize that they could make their scripts NFTs and start actually selling their scripts as NFTs.
Absolutely.
That's a market that hasn't been touched right now.
Absolutely.
Here first.
That would be fantastic.
I could spend all day talking to you, and I said a half an hour. We're over half an hour. I just have a few more questions, if that's okay, and then I'll let you on your way because I know how busy you are. I do want to say the one thing I like about what you're doing are these manga zines. Now, I want to just go over it. Is this something that's still active? Can people still join this?
Well, the manga zine is no longer being published, but we are creating a new manga anthology called Manga Z, and it will feature creator-owned material that are manga inspired, and it should be out sometime in April of next year, the first issue. And I'm always looking for submissions that are manga inspired, because you never know. You take that chance, and see where it goes. And another thing that we also look for is for people who have crowdfunded projects, who have already had their projects successfully crowdfunded, who would be interested in getting their comic book stores. We actively have the venue open for creators who have had projects and would just like to basically make a little extra scratch, for a project that already have lying around. So, we're always encouraging things like that.
All right, I got two more questions for you, and then I'm going to ask Buddy to come back on, tell us some comic book stuff.
Sure.
First, I want the shameless self promotion for you. Tell us what 2022 looks like for you guys. What do you have coming out? What are you excited about?
Well, I do my own crowdfunding projects. I have one out called Ibis the Mystic, which is my take on Ibis the Invincible from the Golden Age. I have several Ninja High School projects coming out that will collect some of the annuals. And my big project for next year is a team up with Tim Lim's Common America with Ninja High School's Tomorrow Girl. We're doing a crossover, and which I will be drawing, and Alpha Perez will be writing. And as far as Antarctic Press is concerned, we're doing the Spectre Man Heroes, which is based on the Japanese live action TV shows. And we're also doing a Carolyn Monroe art book, which will be out hopefully soon. And we're doing our anthologies that we have every month. Horror comics, jungle comics, planet comics, and exciting comics, which we're always in need of new material. So if you feel like you need to submission guidelines, you can ask for them. I will be happy to provide them for you. And of course, we have Gold Digger number 300, which should hopefully be out next year. And we have just a whole slew of other projects coming out, and we're just hoping things will get better.
And now, my final question for you, and I have to ask this, you'll have to excuse, because I've been a fan of you. We've interacted on social media before. I think you're a very intelligent person. I want you to give me your personal favorite characters. Like, what are your top 5 characters? I'm just so curious. I want to know what comic book characters are like. That's Ben Dunn, and that's who he looks at, and those are the characters he loves.
Well, let's see. I do like Mazinger Z. That was one of my favorite. I do like Kamen Rider. I like the Urusei Yatsura. I love Superman, and let's see. And when let's see what my 5th favorite character I would probably have to say would be Will Eisner's The Spirit. I love that character.
That's a great all right, man. I'm impressed as always by you. Thank you for everything you do. Guys, if you want to follow more, go to Antarctic Press right now. Tons of information on there, including their social media, which you can find, and all the amazing books. They even do crossovers. This is the place to be. But before you go, I just want to make sure Buddy doesn't have a question, so we're going to bring the man in, Buddy Scalera. Buddy, anything for Ben that I didn't cover?
I do. And Ben, first off, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Let's go full screen, Rob. Thank you so much, Ben, for joining us tonight. The information that you provided is truly invaluable. And I think one of the things that Rob touched on was really important that you also addressed, which was consistency. Gold Digger is going towards 300 issues. Ninja High School had a lot of issues. The reason people know who you are is because, quite frankly, you were very consistent in putting materials out.
Yeah, I mean, it's if I were to give advice to any creator, you know, come up with something that you can see yourself doing, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years later. If you think you can see yourself doing the same thing in that period of time, then you have something, that has longevity. But yeah, I mean, it's really up to the individual creator. They're all different. We're all unique. That's what makes this industry so fascinating to me because everything is different. There's not a single comic book that's exactly the same as the other. So that's it's just never ceases to amaze me how much material, and not only that, it's just the ideas. That's why I love comics. It's the perfect blending of telling a story and telling and showing pictures. It's just and it's just amazing.
If you could speak to our community about what you would recommend that they brush up on in order to prepare for Antarctic submissions. For example, are you more receptive to a team that comes together with a project? Would you be receptive to just a writer coming in, just an artist? Or we have quite a few team members that do coloring, they do lettering, and some of the other necessary features of making comics. How could somebody prepare to submit to you?
Well, we are a creator-owned publishing company, so anything that you send us is up to you to put together. We don't do any other stuff unless it's a company-owned IP.
Mhm.
For instance, if I were to do a Ninja High School project, I could look for hire an artist and hire a writer, hire a colorist, and I would pay them, to do that. But as far as creator-owned material is concerned, it's really up to the creator and the team to put together the project for us to review. And honestly, unless it's print ready, it's very difficult for us to really do anything with it. It's like getting a model unassembled. You have to assemble it and then send it in to us, and we can, take a serious look at it. But I will tell you though, um, unless the work is just, egregiously not up to our standards, if it's print ready and it's halfway decent, you have a really good chance of being accepted. I mean, it's really that simple. The key is just to get it out of your head and put it on paper. That's really the hardest part of anything. It's just to get started.
And it's hard to get started. That's a lot of what we do here at Comic Book School. We do a lot of experiential learning, and I do have one question that I ask
Sure.
every creator, and it's a zinger. Ben, what is one piece of advice that you wish you had received early in your career?
um, what is one piece of um, don't give up. I mean, it's just like um, you know, what one
That's
piece
a
of
great one. I mean, listen, don't give up. It's succinct, it's to the point, and you know what? You're living proof that don't give up. Keep going, even when it might seem easier to give up.
Sure. I mean, you just never know what's going to happen. The thing is about it, I mean, like you might get a Netflix series, you might work for Marvel, you might work for DC. It's really what your plans are, what your dreams are. But if you don't do it, then there'll be dreams unfulfilled because you may have the greatest idea since Star Wars or Harry Potter, but if it's locked up in your head, no one will ever see it.
That's
And
right.
that's the thing. You got to get it out of your head. That is the key component to every single successful IP ever created. You got to get it out of your head.
I love that. Rob, would you join us back on screen real quick? So, Rob, thank you so much for leading this discussion. You did a fantastic job. Really, I think you drew out types of questioning that I wouldn't have even thought of to ask Ben. So, great job, Rob. You're going to stay on camera with me. Ben, we're gonna pop you off screen, but just stay in the green room for our wrap up so we can say a proper thank you and good night. So, Ben, thanks for joining us, and
Thank
you're always welcome back on the show.
Absolutely. It's my honor. Thank you so much.
All right. So, Rob, What a great interview. Geez, almost an hour of nonstop conversation. What's your big takeaway from interviewing Ben?
Oh man, it has to be the fact that individuality matters and so does professionalism. And the two have to learn to live together. And I think creators struggle with that. They're so eager to make themselves a brand and a product so early on, they don't give themselves enough time to grow and grow into being the creator they're going to be. It's not a short race. It's not even a marathon. This is more of a climbing Mount Everest type of deal. It takes years to get ready to do it. And I think so many creators make a lot of mistakes early on, trying way too hard to impress people when they're just not ready yet. Get the fundamentals in place and then reach out to Ben and listen to people like Buddy. When they're giving you feedback, the feedback's never meant to hurt your feelings. I've never met one creator who actually enjoys talking to other creators when they have to give bad news. But the ones who give you the honest truth, they're the ones who really care. The ones who smile are the same ones who walk right over to the trash can right after you leave and throw your stuff out.
And Rob, I think one of the things that really resonated with me that Ben said at least 2 times was the word expectations. If you are working with Ben, the expectation is you're passionate about the project, that you're going to conduct yourself in a professional manner. And expectations are really clear in publishing. As a publisher, if he asks you, is the book ready or can it be done by Monday? And you say yes, his expectation is he's building a business plan around. And he talked about building a business plan and a publishing plan. I think it's really important that expectations be met. And if you don't know his expectations, he was clearly a very approachable publisher. So great work, Rob. Thank you so much. Hang out in the green room. I'm going to share my final thoughts. And you're always welcome to sub in for me, Rob. So that's it. I think what we did tonight was really special. Rob, being the indie advocate, seemed like the obvious choice to interview really a legend of independent publishing. There is not a single pro that doesn't know who Ben Dunn is. And I think what we were able to talk about tonight was really important. Number one, expectations. Number two, how to conduct yourself. Number three, if you recall, when I opened up this conversation, I was talking about how nice Ben was to me when I was in the fan press, and also how consistent he was. If I said I needed something, he got me something. And that was really important. And that left an impression on me 25 years later. So people don't forget. And you should not forget, Ben is open to submissions. As he noted, he's looking for complete projects. We've included the link to the website and the submission guidelines. You'll see it in the show notes of this episode. If you like what you saw, please click the like button. And if you're so motivated, subscribe. We are here every Tuesday night bringing you the best possible programming with pros who talk about their experiences. And as always, Comic Book School is about the craft and business of making comics. My name is Buddy Scalera, and I thank you for joining me. And I will see you again here next Tuesday night. Roll the credits.